Welcome back to another episode of Olde Carr Guy. Today we're doing a simple brake job. We just happen to be doing it on my 2012 Ford Escape. And on this channel we really are all about learning, so we're going to teach you, in my opinion, the right way, or at least how I do it. Let's get this thing up in the air, get the wheels taken off. So one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm actually going to test the brake fluid. The folks over at Testman have sent me over this brake fluid tester, model number TBF200, and you can get this from a link in the description box down below. It's an exclusive link to my Amazon affiliate. Price is very reasonable. You don't pay any extra for it, but because it's an affiliate page, I get a little kickback from every purchase. They wanted me to test this out, and the whole purpose of this thing is to be able to test customers or your very own moisture content in your brake fluid. So on my 12 Escape, we have no idea when the last time, if ever, the brake fluid was ever serviced. It's a pretty simple tool. It's got two little prongs here on the end that are stainless, and when you turn this on, it's a very simple, easy to read digital display, but what makes it even easier is it's color coded. If we put the prongs in the fluid, this is going to show up either green for it's good, yellow, it's not so good, or red, it's time to flush your brake fluid. So let's stick it in the hole and see what we come up with. So right there, it's measuring 2.5% moisture content and it's staying in the green. That tells me that the brake fluid is good. Chances are this brake fluid has been flushed at some point in its life. This is a very inexpensive tool. It's something that every mechanic or do-it-yourselfer should have. Simple case like this, if it did come up in the red, we could flush the entire system. We've got tools for that, but there are also other ways to flush the brake fluid system on almost every vehicle. Once again, I'm going to leave an exclusive link down in the description box down below. If you want to pick up your very own brake fluid tester, you can get one, and they're cheap. So a huge thanks to Testman for sending this new tool to me, and they've been longtime sponsors of Olde Carr Guy, and they've sent me lots of products, including digital multimeters, wire cutters, stuff like that. So it's always good to have a new product to test for them and to show you guys, and we've added a new tool to our toolbox. So for starters, let's go over the components of your front brakes or any disc brake setup. This is your rotor. This is your disc rotor. The caliper is the big hydraulic piece that's connected to your hose, your brake hose over here. And your brake pads are on the inside. We'll show you a better look at them once we get the caliper off. What happens when you press your brake is brake fluid gets pressurized through the hose. The caliper squeezes against the brake pads, which are on either side of the rotor, therefore clamping down, slowing the vehicle down. I know some of this sounds pretty basic, but sometimes people just don't understand how the front brakes work. Some people don't even know this is called a rotor and not a router. So first thing we want to do is get the caliper off. Let's show you how to do that. So what holds your caliper on is a couple of pins. In this case, they are covered. So there's one here with a cap and one here with a cap. And if I can feel around properly on the inside, these look like they're a hex head. So we're going to need a hex head socket to get in there, pull those pins out, and those will allow us to remove the caliper and get it off of this assembly. Let me go get that socket and we'll get this off. So in this particular case, it's a 7mm hex head, and this is what it looks like. We're just using a 3/8 drive ratchet to get these things out. Now, those will pull right out. Sometimes they won't because they're rusted in there and you got to go take these to the grinder. This is one part of the brake caliper assembly that we're going to be lubing up when we put everything back together, because we want this caliper to slide as the brakes are applied and as the pads wear. Now, if you're lucky enough, sometimes these calipers, they'll just slide off, but sometimes you got to compress the piston that's located in here so that you can kind of get enough clearance to pull that off. Let me show you how I do that. If you can see in there, what I'm touching there right now is the rotor. That's the pad. This is the backing plate to the pad, and then this is our piston. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and pry the caliper back this way, which is in turn going to push the piston in that way. So we've got the piston pushed back, and on this Ford we've got a retainer clip that we've got to take off there as well. So again, with our pry bar, we're going to get in here and we're going to pry that out, and be careful, it can come back and snap you. So there's that clip. Don't throw that away, you're going to need it. So now we can just pull this brake caliper off. The outside pad is going to stay in the bracket. The inside pad is kind of locked into the piston. So with that off, we can just kind of pull that out, and you can see the springs that kind of hold it in place there. And then we're going to take our caliper and we're going to hang it up out of the way. And there are a lot of different tools, S-clips or S-brackets that you can use. I'm just going to use a zip tie, and we are going to hang this thing from the coil spring here. And the theory behind doing this is we don't want to hang that brake caliper from the hose because this is really heavy. We've already proven a couple things. One, the piston will go back, so we know that the piston is good. And we're also going to make sure that we squeeze that back all the way, so when we put the new pads on, we have more room. Because right now, these pads, they're not quite worn out. They're getting pretty close. We're going to replace them anyway while we've got this apart, because our biggest problem here is the rotors are warped, so we're going to be replacing the rotors. If you don't have one of these big mouth channel locks, make sure you grab something. They're just an adjustable plier that you can kind of get in there and adjust the opening here. What we're going to do is we're going to come up here and clamp down on that piston to make sure it goes back all the way. And I thought I just saw brake fluid dripping, but it's not. It's actually coming off of the strut. It was raining when I pulled in here this morning, so that's just dripping here, which is coming down here and coming off that. So there is no problem there. Now let's get this big bracket out of the way, which is held on by a couple of bolts here. I think those look like about 18 millimeter. Now with that bracket out of the way, we can take our rotor off. Now that we've got the caliper bracket out, we're going to clean these surfaces where the pads will move on. As your pads wear out, they will slide within this track right here, and they need a place to move as you're applying the brake. So keeping this clean of rust and debris, we're going to file that out a bit, and we'll add some brake lube in there. Now there are several types of tools that you can use to do this. I like using this right angle grinder to get on these flat spots, but if you don't have that, or if you can't get that part, if you can't get that tool in there, just grab an old-fashioned file. Get in here and just get rid of all the dirt. And same thing down in these grooves. So now we're just going to lube these up, and there's all kinds of different products out there to use. You can use standard grease, this and that, but there is a specific product out there for this type of application. It's a brake lubrication, and we're just going to put it on there on the bottom piece, and then back up here on the top, and that'll help do a couple things. One, it'll help the brake pads slide around in there, but two, it'll help keep that from rusting up, so the next time we're not doing so much grinding. So anytime you're working with new parts, you always want to compare them to the old to make sure that everything looks like it's the same. This has the little spring attachment to go inside the caliper, and those look good. Same thing with this side. And you take the outside pad, and again, it's easy to match those up and know that these pads are good quality and they're going to match. Because I opted to go with the step opposite of the base brake pads, they actually came with new spring clips. Once again, always a good idea to inspect your parts to make sure that you got the right rotors. A lot of vehicles have 2 different sizes, sometimes 3, depending on the trim package of your vehicle. They only listed one size for this Ford Escape, and when we hold these up to the old rotor, They are clearly the same size and similar thickness. Once again, anytime you're doing new pads or new rotors, I like to do them in pairs. It's very inexpensive to do brake jobs, but you also want to make sure that you're giving your brakes the best chance because you got a brand new surface here. Why not match it up with a brand new surface here? If all we were doing was rotors, you see all those grooves in that rotor? Yeah, it's going to take a while for those pads to seat into there and conform to that, and then you're just prematurely wearing out your new pads. We know these rotors are warped anyways, that's why we're replacing them. And we know that our pads, we're about 2/3 worn out, so we're just going to bite the bullet and put those on now. When you get these new brake rotors, they are going to be coated with a film. It feels like grease. Well, that's because it is. They don't want these things rusting before they ever get on the car. So that's where brake parts cleaner comes into play. With a clean rag, you're going to spray this on, wipe off both sides before you put them on the vehicle. And that'll just get rid of that residue, help you stop better with your new brakes. Let's get these on the vehicle. Now, one thing I should point out, some of these rotors, before you take them off, have a set screw that holds them into place before you ever go too far. You'll have to take and get that out before you can take the rotor off. There is a special tool for those. You don't necessarily need it, but it certainly helps. When you push this in and you smash the back of this with a hammer, it's going to shock that screw or that bolt loose, and then you can just take it and spin it all the way out. In a perfect world, you live in the Northeast where you got lots of rust, and that doesn't always happen. Sometimes you got to go in with a cutting disc and cut those out. But we didn't have to deal with it on this one. So now it's time to get our caliper bracket back on so we can start putting everything back together. And this is one of the bolts that we took out, and you'll notice how dirty it is up here. Well, when it came out, it was hard threading that back through the hole because this side gets rusty and you got to pull all that rust and dirt through the threads. So we're going to take this over the wire brush and clean that up and get those put back together. So with our brake rotor in place, we're going to put the bracket back on and put the bolts back in. Now, if it looks like that rotor is just all willy-nilly in there, that's because it is. Once you get the caliper on there and the wheel bolted up against it, that'll hold it in place so it doesn't move around. So it's easy to tell which is the inside and which is the outside pad. We know that this is the inside pad because it fits into the caliper piston. This is the outside pad, well, because it doesn't have that bracket. So it's just going to slide right into place. Just like so. And this one here, we're going to snip it inside our piston. Now we can snip our retaining structural zip tie and then slide this back into place. Now with our guide pins all lubed up, we can slide them back into place. And now, with a new retaining clip, I'm going to put the top side in first in that hole, and then we can come down here. Just kind of weasel that into place. And yes, they are a pain in the ass. Last but not least, don't forget your caps to keep those pins from rusting up. Now that the passenger side is done, you can go over to the driver's side, repeat the same process over there, and then we're going to let the car down and we're going to go up under the hood. I'm going to show you a couple of tips. You remember the step where we pushed back the piston on the caliper? We did that on both sides in the front. The first thing you're going to want to do before you do anything is A, check the brake fluid level in the reservoir and go inside and pump your brake until it feels hard. If you don't do that, you've moved those pistons back. The first couple times you hit the brake, you're not going to have any pedal. You could end up riding yourself into someone's car or in the side of your house or your garage. So make sure you pump those brakes up before you go any further. So those are the basics of doing a simple brake job. That applies to almost every vehicle. There are a few exceptions, but if you're working especially on a Ford Escape, that's how you do it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you like the video. Also, make sure you subscribe to Olde Carr Guy, because being subscribed, you'll get notified of any time I put a new video out. Also, check out my merchandise store, the first link in the description box down below. Stay focused on the windshield, not the rearview mirror. I love you guys. God bless. We'll see you in the next video.